Good afternoon, class. My name is Victor, and today I'll talk about how mental health affects college students. Did you guys know that 1 in 4 students have a diagnosable illness of mental health, and about 40% of them do not get treated for it? The top 5 mental health issues they face are depression, anxiety, suicide, eating disorders, and addictions. So, my 3 points are going to be, 1 is why is college students facing mental health issues. The second, how do mental health issues affect students? And the last one is, what other mental health issues do students face other than lacking in studies? So to start off with, why is it that college students are facing mental health issues? According to an article written by Greg Enriquez, he states that evidence suggests that this large group has greater levels of stress and psychopathology than any time in nation's history. From experience, I can say I've gone through some stress when midterms are approaching or finals as well. And let's not forget when we have big projects or assignments due. I tend to get a bit stressed, and especially when they all pile up together. And then, so my second one was going to be, how do mental health issues affect students? While some students seek help and others do not, having mental health problems affects students in various ways. The most impactful one is them lacking on their studies and eventually not attending class. According to Dr. Enriquez, he states that in a study at UC Berkeley that 45% of his graduate students experience emotional or stress-related problems in the last 12 months, which significantly experience emotional or stress-related problems in the last 12 months and affected their academic performance. On another survey that Dr. Enriquez shows in this article states that the American Freshman Annual Survey of 2012 found that 30% of college students reported feeling frequently overwhelmed. With students starting to feel stressed and overwhelmed, a study showed that rates of anxiety and depression has increased by a lot. On this article, Dr. Enriquez shows a survey which shows that college students found that 50% of women and 40% of men reported experienced episodes of overwhelming anxiety in the past year, and 33% of women and 27% of men had a period of feeling depressed that it was difficult for them to function. My last point is, what other mental health issues do students face other than lacking in their studies? With depression being a big issue on mental health for students, those who are facing depression can also face suicide. According to the American College Health Association, the suicide rate of young adults ages from 15 to 24 has tripled since the 1950s, and suicide is currently the second most common cause of death for college students. On that same study, it showed that 9.4% of students reported seriously considering attempted suicide at least once in a 12-month period, a marked increase from several decades ago. Another issue that college students face while being stressed and overwhelmed is that it leads them to alcohol, which can eventually lead them to binge drink or alcohol abuse. From a personal experience, after a long week of studying and exams, I preferably, after all my finals or exams, whatever, I go out to a bar and get myself a beer. So in his study, it shows that 30% of students meet criteria for a diagnosis of alcohol abuse, and 6% of college students are alcohol dependent in the last 12 months. And then the number of DWIs, which is driving while intoxicated, has increased drastically, and the numbers of alcohol-related deaths have increased as well. With students being in prison, it not only affects their studies, but it can also ruin possibilities they might have had, or possibly even lose scholarships they already had. Lastly, and a big issue has been going on for years now, is the sexual assaults caused by alcohol. I am not saying it's acceptable and I condemn it, but sexual assaults keep on increasing. It is sad what the numbers show. According to a study, over 696,000 students between the ages of 18 and 24 are sexually assaulted a year, and about 97,000 from the same age group are either sexually harassed or raped. This then leads to a traumatic experience for the victims, which can affect their school studies as well, and can possibly lead them to suicide.
All right, Victor, I want to start with the stuff that I'm going to give you credit for doing. You had some good information about stress. You had some research that talked about the level of stress that students might encounter in, especially in their first year, and reasons why they have that. There's also some graduate student stress data that you had. All of that information, though, does come from the same source, so I think you need a little bit more diversity of that information. And then later on, there's a lot of data about suicide rates, considerations of those kinds of things. I think there's a little bit of confusion about the sexual assault data that you've got, because at one point you have 696,000 sexual assaults a year, 97,000 harassment or rapes, and I'm going, wait, so what are the other 600,000 assaults? If they're not harassment or rape, there's got to be something else, and you don't say what that is. And the equivalent of harassment or rape, I do see those as being different things. I think most people would see those as being different things. So I think that that's a little bit problematic. You've got some information here that I'm not sure is being clearly presented. Also, I want to give you credit for being organized, because you do label the structure as you're speaking about it. Now, here's the big problem with this argument. It's not an argument. It's an informative speech. You're telling me about the kinds of anxieties and problems that students face. So what's controversial about that? Who disputes it? Who suggests that this isn't true? Who denies that students run into these kinds of problems, or that these problems exist? Who suggests that alcohol is not a problem at all? I don't know that there's any conflict on any of these points. Every one of the secondary points, the way it's phrased, makes it sound like it's an informative speech. I'm going to talk about why this happens. I'm going to answer a question. I'm going to talk about how this happens. There's another question. I'm going to talk about what other issues there are related to this. 3 questions. All of your arguments should be declarative statements. They should be answers to the questions. This happens because of this. This is being made worse as a result of this. We are failing to adequately address this particular issue. There are places where you could make an argument out of what you've got here, but what you've got basically is a review of data and not really any inferences. You're simply describing something that somebody says is true, and particularly the first section, Dr. Enriquez, here's what Dr. Enriquez says. So the first third of your speech is basically a summary of what his article is, and it's not really drawing any inferences, and I see that as being a little bit problematic. It sort of misses the point of what we're talking about. You need to turn this into an argument, and it's really just background data before we get to the argument. The argument might be that we're failing to adequately address these issues, or that this is there's one place where you do suggest that it's gotten worse than it was at any other time in the past. There might be an argument there that suggests that the stress levels that are faced by current college students are greater than the stress levels faced by past college students. Maybe there's an argument there to be made, but that's really not the main focus of your speech. All right, thank you.